Hey everybody, let's have some fun and build some really easy procedural geometry node effects. And we can do it with just a handful of nodes. Let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and drop in an icosphere. And this is going to help us produce that nice hexagonal geometry. So first thing, I'm going to go into edit mode and I want to subdivide this, and I'll just shift R. I'm going to do this a couple of times. Now I want to come over and add a subdivision surface modifier to this. I can leave it set to 1 and just go ahead and apply it. Now we've almost got the shape that we want under here, but I'm just going to grab the center vertex of any one of these hexagons. I'll go over here to select. I want to go to select similar and amount of adjacent faces. What it's going to do is, for the most part, it's going to select all of the intersecting lines that we don't need. So hit X and dissolve those vertices. I'm sure you'll have a couple of stragglers just due to the actual geometry, but you can just grab those and dissolve those as well. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So now we've got some offset shapes from the original icosphere. Let's go over here and let's add a cast modifier. And so if you're to turn this off, you can see it doesn't look as good without it. So we're going to turn that on and leave it there. And for the most part, these are even hexagons. All right, so click New for geometry nodes. The first thing we're going to do is quickly create a nice wireframe setup. And this is real easy. All you have to do is click Mesh to Curve. We'll drop that in. And then Curve to Mesh. Now we're going to need a profile curve for this. So the curved circle works nicely. Set it to 0.005 and let's plug that in. Now we've got a wireframe. Let's go ahead and throw in a join geo here and let's bring in our original geometry. So now we have this hexagonal pattern, for the most part nice and straight, and we've got this nice wireframe. Now we want to do is start controlling this in a procedural way so that we can actually delete the geometry via proximity. Okay, so we're going to need another object in here, some type of target. You can make a cube, whatever. I'm just going to throw another UV sphere. I'm going to move it over, scale it down, apply said scale, come back to here. I can pin this. All right, so go ahead and drag the sphere as an object info node over here. And what we want to do is drop in a delete geometry, and we'll throw it in right after the curved mesh because it's not really going to work over here for the curved circle. And the delete geometry is going to be, it's going to delete what we want it to by proximity. So let's go ahead and pull in a geometry proximity node. I want to plug the distance into the selection, but first I'm going to need some math. So I'll put in math subtract. Okay, and then I'm going to plug that value into the selection. But first I'm going to need my target geometry to be lined up. Now that we've got that, let's tell, because the wireframe's gone, so let's tell the wireframe to only delete the value we set here based on the proximity of our object info node. So plug this into the selection. And if we kind of move this back and forth, we'll see that we just get it kind of flicking on and off, and that's not really the reaction we're looking for. So we want to tell the wireframe not to have its original position, but move to a relative position based on this proximity, based on this subtract setting and the delete geometry and what is deleted. So now if we move this back and forth, we can see that we actually have partially the reaction we're looking for. Now the cool thing is, if you go to the subtract and remove the bottom value instead, is you have the opposite effect, which is pretty cool. And so now instead of just moving that value, I can actually just move the sphere around and kind of get what I want. And the sensitivity, if you will, is going to be like right here. So if I only just delete a little bit, like I'll say a 0.5, on the subtract, and then I try to move the sphere in, it's not going to delete as much. It's going to have to be a lot closer. So the more intense this is, maybe if you just have it to set to 1, it's pretty good. And then you can delete geometry as you go. Now that looks pretty good, and that's the beginning effect. But let's kind of step it up a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to take the original geometry and I want to throw in the indicator here. I'm going to throw in the proximity effect to an extrude node. So first things first, let's get an extrude mesh node. And I don't ever just drop those in because you can get yourself a nice little crash. I'm going to create a save point here. So what I want to do is bring the offset down to like 0.05 or something really, really low. And then we can drop this in, because what it's going to do is it's going to extrude the entire mesh. And if you have a lot of, quote unquote subdivisions and stuff like that, it's going to potentially throw you into a locked up mode. And if you didn't save or something like that, you're going to be upset, right? So we don't want that. Now what we want to do is I want to take the value here and delete this one as well. So there's a bunch of ways you can go over this. You could simply take the subtract and dump that into the selection of the extrude mesh, and then you'll get this reaction where it kind of builds as it comes in, almost like throwing the shields on before an impact. So it's pretty cool looking. But what we're going to do actually is take another math node and bring it up here, and I'm going to plug the value of this into the selection here. So now the extrude mesh will have its own value based on distance. So I'm going to plug this in, and so now we'll see what's happening is get kind of an opposite effect, if you will, but now we don't have our wireframe, so we're going to need to figure out a way to bring the wireframe back. And since the top selection here provided an opposite effect, all we have to do, since I copied this, is just bring the selection here. And now this value can be changed to create a neat little procedural effect this way as well. And depending on how you do it, you can have this build and you can animate this and do a lot of really cool things so that you can actually see this building kind of with it, if you will. And it gives it a neat little effect as you're kind of going around. And it looks like I missed one of my pieces here. And so I'll just like grab all of this and hit M to mute that. And I'm actually going to go in there and dissolve that vertex. All right, so that's pretty cool. So now with the curved circle, you can change the resolution here for your wireframe and do a bunch of different things. All right, and if you don't like the hexagonal pattern showing like that, just turn off individual, and then you'll get a more compact reaction as it goes. Pretty cool. So it kind of looks like you're unveiling something and creating something at the same time. I'm going to move over to materials. I'll come over here. I'm going to create 2 materials for now. And I'm going to come to the Blender kit, and I like the aluminum. So let's grab an aluminum. Something like this. And I'm just going to tag these colors in here onto the sphere to get them so they'll work in essence on the container. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in a set material. And because I can't directly drop, and the reason I do this is because you can't directly drop these textures onto the geometry nodes and get them to jump in. But if you drop them in on some other object, then you can, they'll be in the containers and you can just list them. And so now I would come over here and maybe go with something like an emission, perhaps, and find something that I like in here. Doesn't matter what it is. And I'll go ahead and drop another set material node over here, and I want to select that emission now. And I can drop that in here. And actually I got rid of that one. I didn't like that. There are some other things in here you can grab. Some of these have some transparencies on them, and I think this is pretty cool. So I'm going for the halo, for the Eevee. And from here, it's pretty neat because now you've got this interesting kind of invisible cage setup. It could be like a shield that pops up or anything that you could think of. I'm going to go ahead and take that material off of there for just a minute, and let's throw, because we're just kind of experimenting around at this point, so I want to Shift D, and I want to throw a delete geometry right here, and I'm going to plug the selection in from our setup. And now we get something kind of interesting here. And I don't like what that is, so yeah, I still got the subtract connected to the extrude. There we go. So that's what I was looking for. So you can create some very layered and very intricate and very interesting damage effects. So this could be the shell of something, some type of hole that was blasted apart. And just a little FYI, this sphere right here, just so it doesn't end up in your renders, all you have to do is grab that and go to the object properties, come down to visibility. And let's remove that from the render. Okay, so now you'll see it's not there anymore, and you could just click it up here too. And so if you remove it from the viewport, I mean, you could even do that after an animation, whatever you're going to do. Part, I could just see doing like a fracture, a self fracture maybe on something like that, and then having this as a remnant piece. So there's some cool things you can do. Anyways, guys, that's it. I appreciate you watching. If you found this content useful, go over and smash the subscribe, smash that like button for more. Check out some of these shorts and other videos that I've got on proximity. I'm starting to come out with a bunch more because I'm just kind of experimenting around and kind of seeing what's possible. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy blending.